I'd like to first of all thank everyone and welcome everyone for tuning into this month's Timely Tips. This is going to be a really crazy month with so much to unpack, but I think you'll find something in there for everyone. We are talking this month about the coronavirus and preparing for the upcoming recession. You know, there's unfortunately a recession underway for those of you who've been paying attention. But you know what? There's also lots of things to think about from the standpoint of where can you save money? How can you prepare? And one of the things you can do this month is get your savings working a little bit harder. So there's also check out the article or the link that we provided this month to Manulife Bank. Manulife is offering up to 2.75 on your savings account so that you can get your savings working a little harder. We also have, as usual, the index, so you know what's going on in the markets for this month. We've got a smile for you because we need things to smile about, and so we've got a Fun Friday post that we do on social media that we wanted to invite you to look at. It's called Vacations, Expectations versus Reality for some of you, and we want to take you on a virtual tour because not all of us are going to be able to go on vacations this year because of the economic lockdown. So go away on vacation with us virtually. Finally, a lot happened this month in with respects to racism. And so I wanted to bring you my take on racism, just based on racism I've dealt with in the financial industry. But we all probably have seen the video by now about George Floyd and what happened to him. So I share in this month's Timely Tips on a podcast called Bo Humphrey's Podcast. I share my own personal journey with racism in the financial industry. And I just wanted to share that with you just to give you a sense of, you know, what racism sometimes looks like. And I also will talk about a little bit later what we can all learn from this, because there is an opportunity to learn from this. And I actually think talking about leaning into uncomfortable conversations about race is one of the ways we can end systematic racism. So I'm going to talk about how that's actually quite similar to having uncomfortable conversations around money and why this is something that we also have to lean into and how it actually helps to eradicate being financially more knowledgeable around money. So learning about money, having uncomfortable conversations around money, having uncomfortable conversations about race are quite similar. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So stay tuned for this month's Timely Tips. It's difficult and it's challenging to have uncomfortable conversations. But at the end of the day, if the end goal is to eradicate racism, or in this case, even get smarter around money, we need to have them. And I urge us to use this opportunity to have them. Now, what had happened to me at the time was I had actually been selected for an award a few years ago, and that was the first time I was nominated for an award and became a finalist. And I was talking in the magazine because I got the opportunity to have this platform to talk about representation in the financial industry. And I actually brought to light the fact that the financial industry was still very much underrepresented by people that looked like me. And at the time, I didn't actually think I was making a very political statement. I thought I was making an actual factual statement. I thought the math, the numbers actually bared out what I was saying, that there were very few people of color in the industry and representation needed to happen to serve all of the members of the communities out there. We needed to have more representation. I thought this was just basic information. Unfortunately, at the time, I became a headline. I became portrayed as a troublemaker in this magazine where I was the only person of color. And I have to tell you that it was a hurtful experience. And looking back at it, especially through the lens of this moment, I recognize it for what it was, which was a missed opportunity to have an uncomfortable conversation about race and representation. And I've been thinking about this for the last little while. And what the conclusion I've come to is, you know, there's actually a lot of similarities to having uncomfortable conversations or leaning into uncomfortable conversations around race As I try to bring and shine a light about the uncomfortable conversations many people, many clients, many people I speak to feel about having uncomfortable conversations around money. And so I wanted to bring that to light, and I thought that was a really important thing to talk about this month. So I'll talk about the first one. So the first one is around mindset. Having uncomfortable conversation takes a certain kind of a mindset. We need goals when we talk about things that make us uncomfortable. So the first thing I want you to think about is, what do you need to learn or unlearn when it comes to uncomfortable challenges around race or money? What do I need to learn or unlearn? And what I mean by this is, if you were someone who were taught potentially limiting beliefs around money, having a conversation might help you to understand that and see that. Just like if you learned something that turned out to not be true around race. And that's just ignorance. Sometimes it's just what you don't know, you don't know. And having a conversation with someone who might not look like you might be helpful to understand that. And so ask yourself, if we're leaning into uncomfortable conversations, whether it's around money or race, what do you need to learn? So what do you want to learn this year around that? What do you want to learn around money? What do you want to learn around race? And what do you think you might need to unlearn around that? Number 2, be prepared to be vulnerable. And that's what's probably the most challenging part around having uncomfortable conversations around race and around money is the vulnerability piece, because people are afraid to be vulnerable. I'm afraid to be ignorant. And that's one of the reasons I tell my stories. I talk about my own challenges with money. I talk about my own struggles with money around coming from not having any money, growing up in a very humble home, having to work really hard for money. That's one of the reasons I call myself a confidant. One of the reasons I share my story around money is to make the people I'm working with comfortable around having their own money conversations. So be prepared to be vulnerable. Be prepared to speak your truth. And if you're going to do that, the number 3 is you shouldn't feel that you're going to be shamed or blamed for being ignorant. Ignorant and arrogance are very different things. So if you're telling me your truth, and this is something that women have told me in particular, is they've often felt talked down to by the industry. Maybe the person they were speaking to their husband and not them. Or if they didn't understand something, they didn't feel it was okay to say, I don't understand. And so when we're having conversations either around money or around race, we cannot shame or blame. What we have to do, especially for people who are just ignorant, we have to give people the opportunity to feel like they're in a safe space to say, I don't know. And that will give them the opportunity to learn or unlearn some of the things that they think they know. And that's true, again, if we're talking about money or we're talking about race. So if I'm now saying, listen, I don't understand how the math works for the time value of money, I need to be prepared as an advisor to sit down and speak in very basic ways to make sure that the person I'm talking to understands without shaming or blaming them. And that's true if I'm ignorant around understanding something around race. We need to be able to have those conversations where we're not shaming or we're not blaming someone for simply not knowing. Ignorance is actually a point of vulnerability, and it's a point where we need to offer support. It's very different than arrogance. Third, I would probably say we've talked about not being vulnerable. We've talked about leading into these uncomfortable conversations, and then we want to look for the future to eradicate racism. Or if we're trying to learn more about money and feel secure about our future, we have to decide on the future we want to have. So in this moment, we're having these conversations around race. We're talking about the things that make us uncomfortable. Then we need to set priorities. We need to set an agenda. What do we want to see happen that's going to make things different tomorrow than they are today? What are inequities that we see that we want to change? What's the agenda for how we're going to change things? Whether we're talking about finance or about money, we need to set a priority list and set an agenda and be prepared to create the future we want to see. And if you need to enlist help, you enlist help. You ask for people, you ask for support. And I truly feel this is the way we're going to change what the future looks like. So, all the people out there, I don't have all the answers. I'm sure we probably have more questions than we have answers right now. But we have to be prepared to ask those uncomfortable questions and then seek the answers. We have to do it in a way that we're not blaming or shaming one another. And then we want to actually gain as much support by everybody having a list of priorities for the future that we want to have. And that's the future I want for everyone. So I'm just going to encourage everyone out there to take this opportunity to have those important conversations and lean into the future that you want to create. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for tuning into this month's Timely Tips. I'm really excited as the economy reopens and now we're heading into vacation season. The beaches are opening, the parks are opening. We're really in a hopeful time, and I hope all of you enjoy your summer. Please feel free to check out, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and all my social media channels. We so look forward to getting your feedback on the content that we share each month. And if you have any ideas on things you'd like to see on a future Timely Tips, please reach out to us. Please reach out to my team. If you have questions around your finances, build your financial fortress, enjoy your summer, and stay healthy and safe, and keep your loved ones safe. Thank you so much.